Can you head to turn it off? Good morning. I know you all got up early and went over to the chamber breakfast. It's time for us to get to work. Representative Moore, you didn't make it? Oh, goodness. You missed that Chick-fil-A. It was good. Members will please come to the floor and take your seats. Members, please come to the floor and take your seats. The hour of convening having arrived, all members will please take their seats. Mr. Clerk, how about I ring that bell? We're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber. And Mr. Clerk, will you unlock the machines? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers, will you please close those doors and keep them closed? As is our custom, we will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Had a great visit with the chaplain and his wife this morning, both very fine people. So at this point in time, I'll let you learn a little more about them, and they'll be introduced by the gentleman from the 144th House District, Representative Dale Washburn. Representative Washburn.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen in the House, it's a great privilege for me today to introduce to you as our chaplain of the day, Dr. Justin Knowles. And Dr. Knowles is here with us with his wife, Cassie, who's sitting right over here next to my wife, Donna, who you know. And Dr. Knowles and Cassie have 4 children. Dr. Knowles is the teaching pastor at Ingleside Baptist Church, where Donna and I have been active for many years. It is a large church in central Georgia. He is the teaching pastor there. He has a bachelor's degree from Mississippi College, a Master of Divinity from Beeson Divinity School at Sanford University, a Master of Theology from Duke Divinity School, and a PhD from Spurgeon's College in London, England. Donna and I have been active members at Ingleside for many years, and Dr. Knowles has been with us for 10 years. I'm a lifelong Baptist, and I've heard a lot of good teaching and preaching, as many of you have. But I will tell you that I have been very blessed by the teaching and the preaching of Dr. Justin Knowles, and I look forward to you hearing him today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to present to you our chaplain of the day, Dr. Justin Knowles.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the invitation to be here today. It's really a joy and a privilege. And thank you all for having me. I want to say thanks, first of all, to you and for all that you do. I'm really grateful for your willingness to serve our state and to put in all the work to do that well in the way that you do. And obviously, this is a room full of leaders. You obviously have a leadership role here within this body. And I would imagine many of you have leadership roles outside this body, whether that's in your family or your church or community or places of work. And so I want to share just a few thoughts this morning on leadership. And they're thoughts that come from the biblical book of Psalms, specifically Psalm 78, the end of that chapter. Near the end of Psalm 78, it talks some about King David. David was a king of Israel, perhaps the best known king of Israel. David was not a perfect king. He was not a perfect leader. In fact, maybe one of the best known stories about David is about one of his failures. So he was not a perfect leader, but he was a good leader. And there's some important lessons that we can learn from his life. So in Psalm 78, starting in verse 70, it says, God chose David, his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. From following the nursing ewes, he brought him to shepherd Jacob, his people, Israel, his inheritance. So you notice it says that God chose David to serve as a leader. In God's sovereignty, he chose the person that he wanted to be in that position of leadership at that time. Of course, first, David was a shepherd. The Lord used that time to prepare him for the role that God was going to use him as a king. And David shepherded sheep before he shepherded people. It was a way of God preparing him. And then at just the right time, God put him in that position of leadership over the nation. So it reminds me of what the Bible says in Romans 13, where it says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. I think David's example, and there in Romans 13, teach us that it's not a coincidence that you are in this position of leadership at this particular time. The Lord has appointed this governing body for this time to serve other people by promoting what is truly good and just. It also tells us that God is very much involved, that He has plans for the world and for the people that He's created. And one of the ways that God provides for societies is through government leaders that are called to serve, just like you. But you also notice it says that David was called for what purpose? To shepherd people. Now, what does a shepherd do? Well, of course, provide some overall leadership, and he does that largely by providing and protecting, by doing what is good for the sheep, for genuinely caring for them. I think all of that then should really give us a sense of purpose related to our leadership and help us see the significant responsibility that comes with it. It keeps us aware that our leadership is not fundamentally about ourselves. It is not a means of self-promotion. It's not self-serving. Our leadership is part of something bigger. We are put in place by God to serve others, to leverage our leadership for the good of others. It reminds me of another shepherd in the Bible, the Good Shepherd, Jesus. I love what he says in John 10 when he made clear that he had all authority in heaven and on earth. And yet what did he choose to do with his authority? In John 10 he tells us that he chose to lay down his life for his people. Like a good shepherd giving his life for his sheep. On another occasion, he said that he didn't come to be served, but to serve. God himself, King of kings, Lord of lords, God in the flesh, saying he came to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many, that we might have eternal life. His example teaches us that we're meant to leverage our leadership for the good of others, to lay down our lives for the good of those that we lead. And so here's the lesson this morning that I want us to hear from Scripture. It's simply that those of us in leadership are put there by God to serve others for their good. Will you join me as we pray? Our Father in heaven, I thank you for your provision through the leaders in this room. And I pray that you would incline their hearts toward you. Fill them with your wisdom, that they might lead in a way that is consistent with your character and your commands and is good for others. Father, I thank you that your grace is sufficient for all of us to do what you have called us to do. The grace that has been expressed ultimately through the death and resurrection of your Son, Jesus. And it's in his name that I pray. Amen. And now will you join me as we say the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent.
Doorkeepers, you may unlock the doors. Members, you may greet the chaplain in the South Anteroom if you'd like to greet him and have a photo. Chaplain, Pastor, thank you for those words. They're very meaningful, and thanks to both of you for being here today with us. We look forward to having you back.
Great, thank you.
Only 38 more days. We're in a good place. chair recognizes Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits. Chairman Tarvin.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal from the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And on another note, we all worried about our health now and a lot of health concerns, and we're not supposed to worry. So I'm going to quote one that was Mark Twain was attributed to him.
Hold one second. Do y'all need to hear this?
I'm an
'Cause
old man.
I know somebody's been worrying. Hold one second. Pause. Y'all need to hear this.
I'm an old man, and I have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. That's pretty stout. Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading of the journal? Chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day?
Representative Administration of the 104th moves the following be established as the order of business under first part of the period unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions. First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions. Second reading of bills and resolutions. Morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? Chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 877 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, a bill being titled an act to provide for a homestead exemption from Chattooga County ad valorem taxes.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 878 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th, Corbett of the 174th, Smith of the 138th, Hitchens of the 161st, and Powell of the 33rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions relative to uniform rules of the road.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 879 by Representative Ridley of the 22nd, Bonner of the 73rd, Powell of the 33rd, Horner of the 3rd, Jaspers of the 11th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 38 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to State Defense Force.
Defense and Veterans Affairs.
House Bill 880 by Representative Ballard of the 147th, Bonner of the 73rd, Burchett of the 176th, Blackman of the 146th, Prince of the 132nd, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Code Section 43(1)34 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to licenses for transitioning members of the armed forces.
Regulated Industries.
House Bill 881 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, Gaines of the 120th, Burchett of the 176th, F. Station of the 104th, Hatchett of the 155th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 15(18)(32) of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Prosecuting Attorneys Qualifications Commission.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
House Bill 882 by Representative Bruce of the 61st, Smith of the 18th, Gunner of the 8th, McLean of the 109th, Beverly of the 143rd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 35(1)(19) of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to disclosure of arrest booking photographs.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 883 by Representative Seaball of the 34th, Cooper of the 45th, Hawkins of the 27th, Dempsey of the 13th, Silcox of the 53rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 50(14)(1) of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to meetings open to the public.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 884 by Representative Alexander of the 66th, Bruce of the 61st, New of the 64th, Thomas of the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 15.6.2 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating the number of judges of superior courts.
Judiciary.
House Bill 885 by Representative Alexander, the 66th, Bruce, the 61st, Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 3, Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to regulation of specialized land transactions.
Judiciary.
House Bill 886 by Representative Holcomb, the 81st, Fleming, the 125th, Paris, the 142nd, Reeves, the 99th, Fryer, the 122nd. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 40.286 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to special license plates.
Motor
House
vehicles.
Bill 887 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 24 of Title 33 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding insurance.
Technology and infrastructure innovation.
House Bill 888 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 44 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to recording of deeds and other real property transactions.
Judiciary.
House Bill 889 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 6 of Chapter 11 of Title 15 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to delinquency relative to the juvenile code.
Juvenile justice.
House Bill 890 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 1 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to laws and statutes.
Technology and infrastructure innovation.
House Bill 891 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to income taxes.
Ways and means.
House Bill 892 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 9 of Title 33 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to regulation of rates.
Insurance.
House Bill 893 by Representative Thomas, the 65th. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to tax exemptions relative to property tax.
Ways and means.
House Resolution 768 by Representative Horner III, Chastain the 7th, Persinger the 119th, Cannon the 172nd, Ridley the 22nd. A resolution creating a House Study Committee on the elimination of state income tax.
Ways and means.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 856 by Representative Al of the 50th, Beverly of the 143rd, Park of the 107th, Roberts of the 52nd, Mitchell of the 88th, and others. A bill relating to public assistance. House Bill 857 by Representative Al of the 50th, Beverly of the 143rd, Park of the 107th, Roberts of the 52nd, Mitchell of the 88th, and others. A bill relating to public assistance. House Bill 862 by Representative Horner of the 3rd, Kelly of the 16th, Jaspers of the 11th, Crow of the 118th, Ridley of the 22nd, and others. A bill relating to homestead option sales tax. House Bill 863 by Representative Campbell of the 171st, a bill to authorize the governing authority of the City of Bainbridge to levy an excise tax. House Bill 864 by Representative Green of the 154th, a bill to repeal an act creating the State Court of Miller County. House Bill 865 by Representative Camp of the 135th and Knight of the 134th, a bill to amend an act to provide a homestead exemption for Lamar County School District ad valorem taxes. House Bill 866 by Representative Camp of the 135th, a bill to create the Pike County Public Facilities Authority. House Bill 867 by Representative Gamble of the 15th, Scoggins of the 14th, a bill to authorize the assessment and collection of a technology fee by the Probate Court of Bartow County. House Bill 868 by Representative Stevens of the 164th, a bill to amend an act creating a new charter for the City of Bloomingdale. House Bill 869 by Representative Estration of the 104th, McCollum of the 30th, Mughal of the 105th, a bill to incorporate the City of Mulberry. House Bill 870 by Representative Washburn of the 144th, Owl of the 50th, Stevens of the 164th, and Newlowitz of the 42nd, Hitchens of the 161st, and others. A bill relating to general provisions relative to state government. House Bill 871 by Representative Perkle of the 169th, Bonner of the 173rd, Corbett of the 174th, Reeves of the 99th, and Cannon of the 172nd. A bill relating to homestead exemption. House Bill 872 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Parrish of the 158th, Bennett of the 94th, Cooper of the 45th, Silcox of the 53rd. A bill relating to medical professionals for rural assistance. House Bill 873 by Representative Gunter of the 8th, Smith of the 18th, Burchett of the 176th, Reeves of the 99th, Lever to the 123rd, and others, a bill relating to courts. House Bill 874 by Representative Hawkins of the 27th, Irwin of the 32nd, Jones of the 47th, Green of the 154th, Cooper of the 45th, and others, a bill relating to health. House Bill 875 by Representative Roberts of the 52nd, Mitchell of the 88th, Draper of the 90th, Westbrook of the 163rd, Lepton of the 83rd, and others, a bill relating to carrying and possession of firearms. House Bill 876 by Representative Williamson of the 112th, Williams of the 148th, Dickey of the 145th, Wade of the 9th, Chastain of the 7th, and others, a bill relating to banking and finance, commerce and trade, wills, trusts, and administration of estates. House Resolution 767 by Representative Roberts of the 52nd, Park of the 107th, Beverly of the 143rd, Mitchell of the 88th, Cannon of the 58th, and others. Resolution recognizing that free and fair elections and the peaceful transfer of power are foundational to our democratic republic, commemorating all who died or were injured on January 6, 2021, including law enforcement officers who bravely defended the United States Capitol. 3 second readers.
We have no standing committee reports, correct, Mr. Clerk? Mr. Clerk, Madam Clerk? Members in the anteroom, I'll ask if you'll all come to the floor. Take your seats. We'll come to order. All members. We have some important work to do here. We have some members that have served this House and this state with distinction we're going to hear from. So I'll ask all members, please take your seats. And let me have your attention, all members. Thank you, members. All members, please take your seats. You know, it's always a bittersweet time in this family of House members over the years. And one of our members, you know, a lot of times it's the end of the session when we do this and hear from a House member that may decide not to come back, offer themselves for a re-election. This time we have one of our members that's moving on a little earlier. This gentleman, Representative Barry Fleming, has served this House with distinction. He has served the people of Georgia and his district with distinction and with effectiveness. Barry is a dear friend who I respect greatly and admire. He's taken his skill set to another place he can serve the people of his district, and he'll tell us about that. I'm going to allow him to do that. Representative Fleming, I'd like for you to come down now and be recognized by a special morning order. Let us know what's going on in your life. Representative Barry Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I do mean thank you, Mr. Speaker. Every time you come to this well, and I have for about 21 years or so, we say thank you, Mr. Speaker, and for letting us stand here, because we have to have his permission to do that. And not only do I say thank you, Mr. Speaker, but thank you also because I don't think even those of us so close to this job realize how much it takes out of a person to serve in the role as the man behind me does. Man, you and I both know the pull's on us. But when you step up and become Speaker of this House, not only are you probably one of the most important men, obviously, in this state, but the commitment it takes from your your time and your family, and you don't get to see your grandkids like you want to, and you miss stuff. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for what you do for us. Thank you. You may be seated.
Me too. Is it going to be that long?
Got to get used to that, I think. About 21 years ago, when I first got elected to this House, then Governor Perdue had to make his first judicial appointment in the state, and an opening came in my district, and he and I talked about that, and he was very gracious to give me the opportunity to be a Superior Court judge, but I did not think it was the right time for me. So I said no, and I didn't know if that opportunity would ever come along again. But lo and behold, it has, and I am extremely thankful to Governor Kemp for allowing me this afternoon to raise my hand and move from the legislative branch of government over to the judicial branch of government, where I think most law students at some point, they wonder if they will ever get to serve as a judge one day, and I didn't know if I would, but I am very thankful to him for giving me that opportunity. I also want to say how thankful I am to our governor for the leadership, particularly at probably one of the toughest times I know in my lifetime I have ever seen a governor have to serve during COVID. We all know how it turned our lives upside down and how difficult some of the decisions we had to make right here on this floor were. Can you imagine being the chief executive of a state and having to deal with that? And I thank him profusely, I know on my behalf, and I'm sure yours too, for being the leader that he was, particularly during that time period. Thank you, Governor. As I pause, obviously, and I look out here on the floor, I see so many friends on both sides of the aisle. I see Mary Margaret over there. I see my Prince right there. There's Sheila. And, of course, my dog, Demetrius. And I do mean dog, D-A-W-G, dog. Go Dogs. One of the greatest things about coming down to this place is, particularly for us who have to come from far away and get a place to stay down here, is this whole idea of getting a roommate, which I've been able to do. You know, we did that in college, many of us, and that was fun. You really got to know folks when they were your roommate. And then I got to do it again after undergraduate. I went to D.C. and worked for a congressman, and I had a roommate up there, my college roommate, my fraternity brother, Steve Fowler, still my best friend. Patrick Caruso, one of my roommates up in Connecticut, he's now a judge, just became a judge up there in Connecticut. Here, my roommate was Representative Kelly. And we tried to figure it out. I think it's been 8 years he's put up with me. And I want to say thank you for that. You know, when you leave this place, even though if you get to move on to an opportunity like me, you still worry about what goes on behind after you leave. And many of you, one of the joys of serving here is to get to help many of you as an attorney perfect your legislation, get the wording right. It's one of the benefits of service that we get from my profession. I'll tell you a little secret. If you need somebody smart, go to Kelly. I mean, he's actually a smarter lawyer than I am, but don't tell him I don't want him to get the big head. Seeing those young people, though, that are here to follow us is one of the things that gives you comfort when you move on. And I know I see Representative Gamble back there. You know, when I was elected to this place in 2002, I started going to the prayer caucus that is on Wednesday mornings. And when I first started, it was a guy named Tom Rice from Gwinnett County. And then Timmy Barr took it over after he retired. And then Representative Gamble is doing it now, that prayer caucus. I would greatly encourage you. It's right in the center of the week on Wednesday. If you want to get your life centered down here and keep your head on straight, go to that prayer caucus. I appreciate him doing that. I call him a young person. He's got three kids, but I don't know, they keep getting younger, it seems like. Don down here, these young people. I'm so thankful to have had a chance to be just a small part of the rich history of this house. Sometimes some of us will say, you know, somebody ought to write this stuff down, some of the things that occurs down here. Maybe I will one day. But the way we only know some of the history is by telling each other about things that we've experienced. And I have so enjoyed my time down here listening to some of the things that have happened, the rich history of this house. And I'll tell you a couple of them. One of them I saw personally, and one of them I heard about. And the first one I heard from a guy named Larry Walker, who was majority leader of this house for a number of years. His son, Senator Walker, now serves across the aisle over there. But both stories center around that man we call the Speaker of the House. The term Speaker was defined for about 30 years down here by a guy named Tom Murphy. Thomas B. Murphy, longest serving Speaker of the House when he served down here. And like him or disagree with him, he was the Speaker. Governors came and went, but the Speaker was always here. The story is that he was elected as a young man to this house in 1960, and he came down here and was a lawyer from over in West Georgia. I think Tyler Paul Smith has most of his district. He was from Bremen, Georgia. And in his first term, he got behind a young fellow over from Augusta named Carl Sanders, who was going to run for governor, an upstart senator across the hall. And he was the underdog, but Murphy believed in him, and he got behind Carl Sanders. And lo and behold, Carl Sanders got elected governor in 1962. Well, another bit of history about this house that many people don't understand is that this house has always not been an independent body. We did not always choose our speaker. We did not always have our own say of who chairman of the committees were. The governor did all that in 1962. He ran this place. It's another story about how we got our independence. But at that time, because Tom Murphy had backed the governor, he made him the chairman of a committee, which was unheard of back then for a sophomore to be chairman of a committee in the House, and the governor allowed him to do that. And one day during that next session, the governor got word down on the second floor that Tom Murphy, one of his chairmen, was out here on the floor working against one of the governor's bills. Well, the governor called Tom Murphy down to his office and asked him, he said, "Tom, what is this I hear?" He said, "I so much appreciate you supporting me and getting behind me. I made you, as a sophomore, the chairman of one of my committees in the House, and you're down there working against my bill on the floor. You just can't do that." And Murphy dutifully listened to his governor and went back to the floor of the House and went right back to working against the governor's bill. Well, the governor got word of that, called Murphy back to his office and fired him on the spot as chairman of one of his committees. It was an unheard of thing right in the middle of session, fire one of the chairmen. Well, the next morning rolled around, and who came to the well of this house? Tom Murphy. He stood right here in this spot. They said you could have heard a pin drop on the floor of the House. He came to this well and he said, there comes a time and a place in every man's life when he's got to stand up and say what he believes. And he said, right now is neither the time nor the place to do that. And then he announced a charity basketball game they were going to have that afternoon. The first time I ever met Speaker Murphy was in 1986. I was a young intern, Dr. Charles Bullock, over at the University of Georgia. I took his Southern Politics class, and he let me, even before I took his legislative process class, do something that any political science kid that wants to go to law school would love to do, is come and be an intern in the legislature. And lo and behold, I got the Plum Committee. I got to be the intern for the House Judiciary Committee in 1986. And my specialist, the thing I was most good at down in the House Judiciary Committee, was the 3 C's. I got coffee, I got Coke, and I got copies. And I could fix you up if you needed that. Well, if y'all been down to that Judiciary Committee, I know you have, it was even more busy back then because there was really only one Judiciary Committee in the House back then, and Murphy being a lawyer, Speaker Murphy, that's where he sent everything, and particularly things he wanted worked on. And the big issue, lo and behold, in 1986 was something called tort reform. And there were 3 members, very prominent members of that committee in this House, who had introduced a tort reform bill to reform the legal system. One of them was an upstart young fellow named Pete Robinson from over in Columbus, Georgia. He had a little company, a new company in his district called Aflac. And of course, Pete went on to be the majority leader in the Senate, head of Troutman Sanders, Government Affairs Department, a great fellow, but he introduced a tort reform bill in 1986. His number 2 signer was a guy named Tommy Chambliss. He was vice chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Tommy had a little entity down in his district in Albany called Phoebe Putney Hospital, and he was the number 2 signer, the vice chairman. The 3rd signer on that now was a guy named Denmark Groover, Denny Groover. They used to say for years down here, if you wanted your bill right, you give it to Denny and he'd grooverize it. He was the whip of the House. He sat right there in that spot. He was Tom Murphy's lawyer, and he was the number 3 signer on that bill, the whip of the House. Well, it came today for the first big committee or so, and of course I'm down there. That judiciary room was packed full of people, and we've been down there at about 4 or 5 hours of hearings. You know how things go down there, and all of a sudden the chairman of the committee, Charles Thomas from over in Temple, Georgia, near Bremen, he grew up knowing the speaker. He did this right here to me. Me? Oh yeah, come here. Intern, I kneel down. Now, this is before cell phones and texts and everything like that. He kneeled down, I kneeled down, and he said to me, you, and only you, go to the speaker's office, and you tell the speaker, and only the speaker, things are not going right, and he needs to come down here now. I said, you want me to go to the speaker's office and tell him that? He said, you and only you, and don't you talk to anybody else. I said, where's the speaker's office? He said, 3rd floor, ask anybody. So, here I go. I come up here and I find the speaker's office and I walk in. Now, back in those days, you did not get to see the speaker unless you got through Lunell. Lunell was the speaker's secretary, and she was the gatekeeper. So I walk in the door and she says, young man, can I help you? And I said, yes, ma'am, I need to see the speaker. She said, well, who are you? I said, I'm Barry Fleming. She says, well, what do you do? I says, I'm the intern for the House Judiciary Committee. She said, that's fine, son. Just tell me what you need and I'll take care of it. I said, no, ma'am. Chairman Thomas said I could only speak to the speaker. She said, okay. So she then brought me back to the chief of staff's office, a guy named Steve Anthony. He ended up being a professor over at Georgia State. And I walked into the chief of staff's office. He said, young man, can I help you? I said, yes, sir. I need to see the speaker. He said, well, who are you? I said, I'm Barry Fleming. He said, well, what do you do? I said, I'm the intern for the House Judiciary Committee. He said, well, son, just tell me what you need and I'll take care of it. I said, no, sir. The chairman said I could only speak to the speaker. He said, all right, son, hold on just a minute. Second later or two, he walks me into Speaker Murphy's office. First time I ever met him in my life. He said, son, who are you? I said, I'm Barry Fleming. He said, what do you do here? I said, I'm the intern for the House Judiciary Committee. He said, son, what do you need? I said, Mr. Speaker, the chairman told me to come tell you that things are not going right with that bill and you need to come down there now. He said, all right, son, you go back down there and you sit down and you don't say nothing to nobody. So I made my way back down to the Judiciary Committee. I went by the refrigerator and got a Coke for good fashion, set it up there in front of the chairman. I sat in my little position over there in the corner, and after 30 seconds, the chairman looked over at me and I said, about a minute or two later, that door swung open back there in Judiciary, and in walked Speaker Murphy. Now, that room was packed. The fire marshal would have arrested everybody in there, but it looked like Moses parting the Red Sea when Speaker Murphy walked up to that judiciary table, and the chairman stopped the meeting right there and said, well, my goodness, Mr. Speaker, what in the world brings you down here today? And Speaker Murphy walked over to the table like he could. He's a larger-than-life figure, a big man. He said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, to come down here and interrupt your proceedings. I know y'all got a lot of stuff going on, but I just wanted to come down here and tell y'all how much I appreciate what y'all are doing. He says, I know I send you too many bills down here. You're down here every day, all day. It's ruining your law practice, but I could not run this house if it were not for y'all. And I just wanted to come and say thank you. And he turned to walk away, and then he leaned back and he says, "In the worst bill I've ever seen in my life." You get Pete Robertson to tell you that story back when he was still here, and he'll tell you they had about 14, 15, 16 votes out of the 20 or so lawyers on that committee. And after the Speaker Murphy left, it went back to the 3 guys who signed the bill. Mr. Speaker, that's when I learned about the procedure of the House of Representatives. Procedure rule number 1, the Speaker is always right. House procedure rule number 2, when in doubt, refer to rule number 1. I'll end this morning by probably doing the more important thing, and that is thanking my family for allowing me to come down here and serve. I knew they were going to be here this afternoon for the swearing in, but I did not know that they were going to get to be here this morning. My beautiful wife, Paige, and my son I love, Zach, are both back there in the back, and my brother, Jimmy, is sitting right up there in the balcony. I cannot tell you how many calls they have fielded, how many signs they have put up, how many doors they knock on. You all understand. Without my beautiful bride allowing me to do this, there's no way I could have done it, and I sincerely am blessed with my family, and I thank them. I am a lucky man. I have been allowed to do the duty that lies nearest to me. That's Sir Thomas Carlyle and his masterpiece, Sartor Resartus, the tailor retailored. Do the duty that lies nearest. He tells us, sic vos non vobis is what's most important. That's Latin for not for ourselves, but for others. Ever since I have been here, I have asked the Lord to give me wisdom to know what to do. Every time I go on some new endeavor, whether it's run for office or not, I always reference the book of Kings when Solomon is about to become a leader amongst his people, and he asked the Lord for just one thing, for wisdom, and the Lord blessed him with that and much more. I think that is the example for all of us, whether we're going to be a judge or a House member or whatever. Ask the Lord for wisdom. The promise is over in the book of James. This is my dad's Bible right here that my wife will hold for me today. And if you look in James chapter 1, verse 5, it says, ask the Lord for wisdom if you need it, and he will give it to you generously. And if I could part you with anything, that's what I would do. The barb of old said, parting is such sweet sorrow, is it not? Thank you all for allowing me to serve with you. God bless all of you, and God bless this great state of Georgia. Thank you.
Paige, we thank you for sharing Barry with us over the years and supporting him. Zach, thank you for allowing your dad to take time away from being with you over the years. Important things in your life as well. I know there's been some of those. And I'll close with this. Representative Fleming, you have done that duty nearest, and you've done it very well. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your friendship, and Godspeed in your further pursuits. Chairman Mac Jackson, you in the room? There he is. I think you have some folks in the gallery that need to be recognized. And we'll be prepared for Representative Kendricks and Representative Moore after Chairman Jackson and some friends, looks like. Awesome. Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Georgia Head Start Association Day at the Capitol. We have some Head Start officials in the gallery. Want to recognize them. Won't you stand so we can recognize you at this time? Today they're here to celebrate our annual Susie Wiltshire Day at the Capitol. The late Susie Wiltshire passed away on August 2022, and she was very instrumental in Head Start. She loved Head Start, and today we're celebrating her day today at the Capitol. Susie was an advocate for Georgia's infants, for toddlers, and preschool children. They have asked that you join them for lunch in room 230 at the Capitol at 11:30. I'm sure it's past 11:30 now, but they still have lunch for you in room 230. And we have Head Start from all over, from Columbus, Georgia, from Burke County, Richmond County, from Savannah too. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. We yield the well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome. Glad y'all are here. Appreciate the work you do with Head Start. It helps a lot of folks, no doubt about that. Representative Angela Moore is recognized for a morning order to recognize some folks in the gallery. Representative Moore. And she has some friends as well. It's always good to have support. Representative Moore.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, good morning. We're really excited that today is Debutante Day at the Georgia State Capitol. And in our midst, we have our 2024 debutantes here today, along with their leader, Miss Mims. Miss Mims, would you please stand? Miss Mims is the sponsor of this program, which is a much lost tradition. The program is positive mentorship in our counties. These young ladies range from DeKalb, Rockdale, Henry County, as well as Newton County. Got it? Newton County. Ladies, if you all would please stand for a moment. The goal of the event, hold that applause, is to encourage these young rising high school juniors and seniors to pursue higher education, academic excellence, personal development, and today begins their civic duty and civic involvement in the state government and world government issues as well. The debutantes of Georgia are enrolled in a scholarship program which will culminate on February 24th, 2024. We are so proud to welcome you all here. You all are women amongst women today, and we hope that we will encourage you and ask you to go into your endeavors with pride that Georgia has your back. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please introduce you to the debutantes from the east side of the A, 2024. And we'll meet you in room 216 for a taco bar. Good job. All right, let's go.
Thank you. And welcome to the People's House. Representative Kendricks recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. This morning, I would like to recognize someone special in the gallery, Mr. Richard Hicks. He's the CEO of Inspire EDU. And as him and his team stand, let me tell you a little bit about their work. Their mission, are y'all paying attention to me? Because I can barely hear myself. Okay.
Please give the lady your attention. We have guests in the gallery.
Thank you,
Please
Mr.
give-
Speaker. Inspire EDU's mission is to help underserved youth develop the skills needed for education and career success through technology-based learning tools and engagement activities with their families, their communities, and schools. Their purpose is to bridge the gaps in digital literacy and access by providing our community's most marginalized and vulnerable citizens with the resources and support they need to be competitive in pursuit of their education and work preparedness. And he just came back from the city of Atlanta for getting a proclamation for his work. So if you care anything about digital literacy all over the state of Georgia, could you help me congratulate him on the work that he is doing in the community? Thank you.
I think that completes our morning orders, recognizing our guests in the gallery. Thank you for those folks being present. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions?
Honoring the life and memory of Peggy Usher Theus. Honoring the life and memory of John Michael Venable. Honoring the life and memory of Jack Bassett. Honoring the life and memory of Steve Hadley. Recognizing and commending Eric D. Thomas. Commending Shantiria Shellman, Alston Sampson. Recognizing January 15, 2024 as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc.'s 116th International Founders Day. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We'll move on now to afternoon orders. Chair is going to give the members 2 minutes each. There are some very important afternoon orders we're going to hear, so I'm going to ask the members at your seats to give the member in the well your attention and your respect. Representative Shay Roberts is recognized for an afternoon order. Members, I'll repeat, we have 2 minutes each will be allocated for afternoon orders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Saturday marked 3 years, and we did not want this week to pass without taking a moment to remember those who died or were injured as a result of the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, including the law enforcement officers who bravely defended the People's House in D.C. I was inspired by you, Mr. Speaker, today at Eggs and Issues, and I couldn't agree more that improving the public's confidence in our elections is so important. With many of our colleagues receiving threats, being swatted, the dramatic rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, as we head into what is likely to be another tumultuous election year, it's important as leaders of this state that we set a good example and recommit to ensuring free and fair elections and the peaceful transfer of power. Preserving these foundations of our democratic republic is the best way we can honor those whose lives were lost on January 6th. So please, let's all take a moment of silence to reflect and remember the January 6th victims. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The lady shielded the well. Representative Maynor is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If we can please rise for a moment of silence for a community member that we lost over the holidays. Her name is Keona Jones. Keona Jones has actually been running against me for quite a while as my opposition candidate. And one thing about politics is we are all children of God. And her family is hurting. Her church community is hurting. On behalf of the Dixie Hills Baptist Church, Reverend Sutton and his family, the state of Georgia, we offer our condolences to you on this loss. And let's bow our head in a moment of silence for Keona Jones. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, thank you, Representative Maynor. Representative Brad Thomas. There he is. Representative Thomas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand before you today to discuss a significant policy change within the Veterans Administration that's far-reaching implications for our nation's heroes. Beginning 1 week from today, January 17th, all eligible veterans will be able to access emergency mental health care free of charge at any veterans medical facility or outside clinic. This is regardless of whether they're already enrolled in the Department of Health Care Services. This marks a crucial step forward in ensuring the well-being of our veterans, particularly in their most acute times of need. Under Section 201, the VA commits to providing or paying for treatment of eligible individuals in emergent suicidal care, including transportation costs to a VA or non-VA facility. This extends 30 days of inpatient care and 90 days of outpatient care, with the possibility of an extension. Additionally, appropriate referrals to continued care and eligibility. So who's eligible? There are some further caveats, but veterans who served before September 1980 who were discharged under conditions that were not dishonorable, veterans who joined after September 7th, 1980 who have served 24 months, also not discharged other than dishonorable. And it's just imperative that we understand the key provisions, and as leaders in our respective communities, it's our collective responsibility to spread awareness about these new provisions. Thank you. Let's stand united to support our veterans. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the well. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Representative. I visited one of those clinics. They're doing great work. Great work. Representative Draper, you're recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I invite any colleagues who are interested in the issue of maternal mortality to join me here at the well. So this morning, colleagues, like many of you, I attended Eggs and Issues sponsored by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. I am so pleased to hear that healthcare is among their priorities. And I was so encouraged to hear that it is a priority of this House, this session, to increase access to healthcare and provide better outcomes for Georgia families. Georgia's mothers desperately need better outcomes. The House Democratic Caucus held a hearing on maternal mortality last week. I had the great privilege of sitting on that committee. Many groups who dedicate themselves to this issue testified before the committee. They were professionals, doctors, nurses, academics, organizers, and we also heard directly from women who either had had a near-death experience during childbirth or lost someone they loved during childbirth. And woman after woman shared their souls with us, their most painful moments, in the hopes that we can do something to change maternal outcomes for our fellow Georgians. I had a harrowing experience the first time I gave birth. If my good friend, who happened to be an OB nurse, hadn't advocated for me, I don't know what would have happened. And my guess is that every one of us in this chamber has either had such an experience personally or knows someone who has had such an experience or has lost someone they love during childbirth. Because even though having a child is a natural thing, it is also an extremely dangerous thing. I have 3 kids. As a mom, I remember kissing my children as I went to go give birth at the hospital, and it was this crazy conflation of feelings, this excitement that I was going to bring a new life into the world, into my home, but also a fear that if, God forbid, something should happen to me during childbirth, I would not see my children on this earth again. And the truth is that that fear, that risk, it's higher for my Black sisters. Black women in Georgia are 3.3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than white women are. Georgia has one of the worst maternal mortality rates in the country. third highest in the country. And by the way, it's getting worse, not better. I used to refer to the death of women during childbirth in Georgia as a crisis, the maternal mortality crisis, but after last week's hearing, I'm going to adopt new nomenclature that I think more accurately describes what is happening here in Georgia. It is a state of emergency. Women and babies are dying. Black women and black babies are dying. These are tragedies that do not have to happen. Over half of them are preventable. And so this is a call for action. We will continue beating this drum. Colleagues, I invite you all to join us. Let's pass some legislation and save precious lives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Ladies yielded the well. Representative Eric Bell is recognized for an afternoon order. I will remind the representatives, the Speaker's been very lenient on the last two. We're going to hold you to 2 minutes. And the lights are working on the podium, so Representative Bell.
Human trafficking. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am honored to be with you today, serving as District 75 representative for the Georgia State House. But today I rise to speak about an issue that touches every district, not just mine, but human trafficking. Human trafficking is an issue that we all are familiar with, but maybe we all can do some more work with it. So I would like to invite you on January 20th to a Human Trafficking Awareness Resource Fair with myself and Representative Deborah Bazemore, where we'll be trying to eradicate this issue, not only for my community, but for all our communities. We'll be providing resources as well as training and seminars for our community members to know how to identify and how to attack human trafficking and how to eradicate that in any way and form that may look. So please, if you have any resources that we may be able to provide to the community, I call on you for this help. I call on you as representatives, and I call on you as comrades to the fight against human trafficking to make Georgia a better place to live, work, play, pray, and to move other economic stings, no matter where you come from. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. It's an important topic, so we appreciate your attention to it and those that joined you up there as well. Representative Scott Hilton is recognized for a an afternoon order. Now we're in the afternoon now, so you're good. Afternoon order, Representative Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Peach State welcomed Vice President Harris to Georgia for a talk on voting rights and ballot access. The speech was part of an ongoing narrative from the administration to instill fear and misinformation prior to the 2024 election. If I've learned anything from our great leader, Speaker Burns, it's that this House deals in facts. As Georgia is set once again to be the political epicenter of our nation, I think it's important now more than ever that we deal in facts. And here are the facts. Georgia continues to set records for turnouts amongst all groups. In 2022, we achieved the largest single-day in-person early voting in Georgia midterm history. The U.S. Census Bureau found that Georgia is ranked #1 in the Southeast and 17 overall in turnout. A recent survey by MIT and the University of Georgia, you don't hear those two schools mentioned often, found that 98.9% of voters reported no issues casting a ballot. The same survey found that 95% reported a wait time of less than 30 minutes, and 90% of all voters feel confident about our elections. Finally, the Bipartisan Policy Center said Georgia's #1 for election administration. I want this to be heard loud and clear. When it comes to voting in Georgia, we need to tell our constituents and this body that it has never been easier to vote and harder to cheat in this great state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman is yielded the well. So we have two final afternoon orders. Members, if you will pay special attention to these two orders, I'll invite up the Cherokee County delegation. Cherokee County delegation, if you'll all come to the well. Representative Ridley is recognized for an afternoon order.
Last night in Cherokee County, a car ran off the road and struck a tree with 5 17 and 18.
Members, will you please rise?
These 5 individuals were all between 17 and 18 years old. One died at the scene and one died later at Kennestone Hospital. One had just recently graduated from Etowah High School, the same high school I went to and my sister went to. It's one of the largest high schools in the state, or in our county, and our students and our families in our county are dealing with this loss. And if you could just take a moment of silence to recognize these lives that were cut short before they could really even start. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and our prayers go out to those families. Representative Glaze is recognized for an afternoon order. Representative Glaze, pay special attention. It's another tribute and a moment of silence, I think, for a passing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise before you today because as a family member who lived in the city of Fairburn for almost 38 years, we lost a mayor that I got to know very well, Mayor Betty Hanna, who served the great city of Fairburn for 26 years, the first woman, and we continued to elect her until she said her time was up. She was 86 and passed on January the 6th. Her husband, Ray Hanna, served her and took care of her during her years of dementia, and he passed just 2 weeks before her. So to this great family who served our great state in the city of Fairburn, it is my honor, and I'm so sorry that we couldn't do more today, but I just got the news. And so would you bow with me for a moment of silence for the Hanna family? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Glaze. This is a tough time for the family, so let's all remember that family in our prayers. That completes our afternoon orders. We'll now move on to announcements. Chairman John Corbett is recognized for an announcement. We got you, brother. Take time. We only have to be done by 5 or 6 o'clock, something like that. I'm not sure. Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rural Caucus, we have lunch in the Ag Building upon adjournment. DOS Barbecue, come join us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Buckner, you're recognized for an announcement.
Well, after you eat lunch with the Rural Caucus, think about tomorrow's lunch. Working families will have their first meeting of the session. It will be upon adjournment in 307 of the Legislative Office Building. So working families, come join us for lunch tomorrow.
Sounds like a good lunch. Chairman Knight, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow we have our annual Keep Georgia Wild Day at the Capitol from 8 to 10, second floor. Many of you have been there in the past, formerly the Coastal Sportsman's Day at the Capitol. But please come out and visit. Our DNR will be there with their different divisions, plus a lot of our conservation organizations. These are folks that are in your community and around the state that care about Georgia, the conservation, and the wildlife in Georgia. Please come out and say hello and participate. Thank you.
Chairlady Camps, recognized for an announcement.
Good afternoon once again. I just wanted to announce that following our departure today, after we adjourn, in room 403, we are having a lunch and learn. It is intergovernmental coordination. It's to give some good tips and best practices to give your local bill the best chance of making it through both chambers and to the governor's desk. So 403 today, after adjournment, we are serving lunch from Carrabba's. Thank you.
Chairman Ron Stevens is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee, tomorrow, after the Governor's State of the State, we'll meet over at the World Congress Center at 1 o'clock. You all have a badge to get on to the parking deck, the red deck over in front of the stadium. It'll be at 1 o'clock at the World Congress Center, room C302. And then afterwards, we're going to go see all the things that are built marine at the Atlanta Boat Show that are made in a lot of your districts. Thank you.
Members, we have a couple of more announcements, but we need to take care of something with Chairman Blackman. Chairman Shaw Blackman has an announcement that we all need to be made aware of, and if you will, oh, there you are. Give him your attention, and I'll ask you all to stand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We rise before you today with heavy hearts. A former member of this body, Roy H. Sonny Watson, went to be with the Lord yesterday, January 9th, 2024. Somebody who was larger than life, and want to appropriately acknowledge and honor him with a couple of things that were written. He grew up in what is now known as Warner Robins. He graduated from Georgia Military College and then later earned his degree at Mercer University. He humbly began his career at a filling station, and then he became the city clerk and administrator for Houston County and served in that capacity for 17 years before he was elected to this body, where he served a distinguished career for 22 years, and he earned the title, as you heard earlier, the chairman. I think you'll hear more about that from Chairman Powell, but he served as the House Industry Committee chairman, and frankly rewrote the book on how to serve in that capacity. I think one of the most notable things he shepherded through this body was what is one of the most successful programs in Georgia's history, and that's the Hope Scholarship Program. And of course, he didn't stop when he when he left this body and went back home. He was a brilliant and successful business person. Started with Watson Insurance Agency. He served as the chair of the Houston County Healthcare System for 18 years, and he was a champion of so many things: Warner Robins, Middle Georgia Technical College, Robins Air Force Base, Museum of Aviation, and I could go on. I think he was fair to say that he was tough but compassionate. I don't think I ever visited his office when I didn't leave having laughed numerous times and learned something very profound. He was highly respected, much admired, and people loved him. I hope you'll join me in praying God's peace over his wife of 67 years, Janine, his daughter Cindy, his grandchildren Jennifer and Joseph, and I know that there are some others that may want to have a word.
Thank you. Members of the House, a lot of y'all have heard me talk about this over the years, and those of us who have a certain number of years of historical perspective, we talk about this, that we're all colleagues, whether you're here or whether you're gone, but we're all brothers and sisters. We serve in the greatest fraternity that there's ever been. I was fortunate enough when I was elected 34 years ago and took office that Speaker Murphy and those people in power at that time saw something in me, and they assigned me to Sonny Watson's tutelage. Now, what my friend from Warner Robins said about compassion, I never saw that in Sonny while he served. Obviously, when he left public service here, that society came out of him. But he absolutely wrote the book on how to be a chairman. And a lot of y'all who crinkle your eyes up at me at some of the things that I say, well, you can blame it on Sonny Watson, because Sonny taught me how to be a chairman. one of the things that people don't realize about Sonny Watson, and they remember Zell Miller, they remember the lottery, but a lot of people don't remember that when Zell was elected, it was still, the lottery barely passed. At that time, we had all the old felt hat crowd from World War II and the Korean War. And those guys at that time were absolutely petrified to vote on gambling. They were petrified to vote on alcohol issues. But Sonny Watson never blinked an eye. When that bill came to the committee, we dispatched it. And if it had not been for Sonny Watson, then that program today would not be in effect. He was absolutely a chairman's chairman. In that day and time, the House had probably half as many chairs as they do now. Being a chairman absolutely meant you had to be a chairman. A very sought-after committee. Sonny sat right over here in this, on this side over here on the front row. And with Sonny, if you asked a question, you never had to worry about where he stood on things. If something went to the committee, it was all about business at that point. So that being said, I would admonish every member in this House to think about this, that you could be fortunate enough when your tour comes to an end in this House chamber, the People's House, that if your memory is still there and you've passed on certain information to other members, it'll carry forward and you will be as lucky as Sonny Watson has been, that he is as revered. And you don't have to believe me, there's still a few lobbyists around that will probably testify to that. I would tell you plenty of stories as his vice chairman for several years, some of the things that he had said, but I will give you one, the cleaner version. He was so good at the legislative process that I saw something done under his chairmanship I'd never seen done. There was a lobbyist that made fun one day, to their dismay, that a certain piece of legislation never was dropped in or passed, and he was making fun of it, and he made the mistake of quoting that, well, Chairman Watson didn't get his way this time. Sonny had a bill drafted within 30 minutes, and of course we did things different in that day. Dropped the bill in, had the rules suspended, had it read, had it assigned. We had a committee meeting in the anteroom of the industry committee. Bill Lee called a meeting of the Rules Committee in the same fashion, and within an hour that bill was on the floor, passed, and in the Senate. And Sonny walked outside, and that lobbyist was still cackling about the fact that that bill hadn't never got any further, and he told him, he says, you need to go over to the Senate. And that bill did pass. But that is a man who was committed to this House. He was committed to the independence of this House. He didn't shy away from Speaker Murphy when the Speaker was wrong, nor any governor. So that being said is just a history about a great man who served in this House for a number of years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Blackman.
You just join us in a brief moment of silence. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you all. Prayers for the Watson family. Thank you for those remembrances about the history of this House. Chairman Jaspers is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if anybody has recognized something that happened this morning. If you were at Exit Issues this morning, and I hope many of you were, and if you didn't, you need to go back and watch the videotape of our speaker. Speaker, you did an
You're not recognized for that.
Well, you know, I got it. Don't cut it off yet. But you did an outstanding job. And I want to, as us a group, we need to recognize him for a great job this morning.
Are you done?
No, sir. If you say I am, I am. But members, tonight, you got a note on your desk yesterday. The contractors that keep you warm and they keep you cool, they fix your glasses, they mine the minerals, they build the buildings, and make Georgia the great state it is, have a reception tonight for you at the Commerce Club at 4:30. I hope you can honor them by your presence. They're great supporters of all of us and all of our citizens. I hope you can be there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a great group. I hope we'll try to attend. And certainly, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's all about the House. Chairman Hawkins, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee on Health will meet today at 2 o'clock in Capitol 403. See you at 2.
Chairman Mitchell, recognized for an announcement.
The Democratic Caucus will meet tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in room 216. Breakfast will be served. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks, Representative Billy Mitchell. Chairman Gunther, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judiciary Committee will meet at 8 a.m. in the morning in room 132. We have about 3 bills to take up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for getting to work, man. Yes, sir. Well, that's what this House is about. Chairman Martin is recognized for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker, the Higher Ed Committee, your Higher Ed Committee will meet at 2 o'clock today, 2 o'clock over in CLOB. The notices have been sent earlier this week. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That concludes our announcements. You have more information overload, I'm afraid, but we have to have the information. So let's move on. Hey, we have some birthdays today. Let's see. Come on, Representative Holland, stand up. Representative Betsy Holland has a birthday today. Happy birthday. Representative Karen Bennett. I thought you stopped having birthdays. Happy birthday. And we have one more. Chairlady Beth Camp. There she is. She's already standing. Happy birthday, Representative Camp. Appreciate the work you do. You're halfway there, right? I'll let y'all figure that out from there. Well, members, thank you for being here. That concludes our work for the day. The House Majority Leader, Leader F. Stration, is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, January 11th, 2024.
On the motion of the Majority Leader, I'll remind you first that tomorrow the governor will be here for State of the State. That will occur at 11 a.m., State of the State at 11. Is that right, Mr. Leader? But we'll be here at 10 a.m. So on the motion of the Majority Leader that this House stand adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, January the 11th, 2024, all those in favor will say aye. Opposed, no. It's close, but ayes have it. We're adjourned.